Hello, hello. I'm afraid I missed your call. You called me just a few minutes ago.
Yes. Yeah, my name's, I'm ringing from the Chepstow Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. Apparently you left a message on one of our phone systems just with some questions about literature. You took off one of our literature carts, I think.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Chepstow. Yes, Chepstow Congregation. Yes. I remember. Yes. I was given a copy of your book, Enjoy Life Forever.
Yes.
I've been looking at it. I haven't read all of it, but I've just been reading bits and pieces of it that I found interesting. One thing that shocked me a little bit was your view on blood transfusions, lesson 39, right. God's view of blood.
Yes.
Is it possible to help on that, please?
Yeah, I tell you what, is it possible to have a discussion about that, did you say?
Is it possible to explain your view on blood?
Right, yes. Right. Well, I can explain it briefly over the phone, but if you want some more detail, obviously we can meet a different person. But yeah, if you look back at the scriptures, right from the time of Noah, after he came up the ark, and then you've got a bit more back in Bible history in the Mosaic law, and then even in the first century, every time it reiterates about not consuming blood or eating blood. So we follow that prohibition because obviously in the Bible blood has a specific use that God wants to use it for. So we follow that scriptural reasoning of abstaining from the use of blood.
So you'd see yourself as being under the Levitical law? Oh, gosh. Has he hung up?
Hi there, sorry, I lost the signal there.
Right. Yes, so you would see yourself as being under the Levitical law, like the Jewish people of thousands of years ago under Moses, is that right?
No. No, we're not under the Mosaic law.
Well, if you're not under the Mosaic law, I mean, do you eat pork, for instance? Do you eat shellfish, lobster, crab, pork?
We do, yeah.
Well, then you're not under the Levitical law, are you?
No.
And the rules on blood don't apply?
Well, the principle applies, and it's reiterated further on in the scriptures. For example, later on in the Christian congregation, it's reiterated about not consuming blood. So we follow that.
Surely that's to do with cultural issues in Acts 15. Wouldn't it be a cultural thing? I mean, I've been on your site, jw.org, and I was quite shocked because I discovered that in 1967, when the first heart transplant was performed, I found a Watchtower article that forbade any form of organ transplant, not just heart transplants, but liver transplants, kidney transplants, even cornea transplants for the eye. They were banned in 1967, but then there was a reversal of policy in 1980, some 23 years later, and they became allowed again. And many Jehovah's Witnesses surely would have died because of this ban on organ transplants. So I'm a little bit shocked about that. I mean, this would have led to people's death.
Well, as I say, if you'd like to discuss it a bit more in person, then we can arrange to meet with you and give you a bit more detail. It's a bit difficult over the phone now, so I think maybe better to discuss it in person if you'd like to do that.
Well, I mean, obviously, if a person is knowledgeable and honest, then yes, I'd like to speak to that person. Fine, okay. But if a person doesn't know what he or she is talking about, why should I waste my time? It's the Watchtower, 15th of November, 1967, page 702 in the bound volumes, and it bans organ transplants. I can read it to you if you'd like me to. I mean, I'm just shocked about this, that, Jehovah's Witnesses would have died for 23 years. Why were...
as I said... Sorry, go on.
Yes, why were organ transplants forbidden for 23 years, sir? I mean, I just don't understand this. I can read the Watchtower to you if you'd like me to read it to you. It's up on your website, jw.org.
As I say, I think it's probably best to discuss it maybe in person. I think, face-to-face is probably the best. If you'd like to meet up with us sometime.
No, I don't go to any religious building at all.
Okay.
And if I ask, if a Mormon knocks on my door, and I say that's very interesting, can you prove to me that Joseph Smith is a prophet and that he actually received these golden plates from angels? I'd be rather suspicious if the guy gets, we can't talk on the door. You must come to our building. You must attend all meetings. You must do this, that, and the other. I don't have to do anything. I'm just a member of the public. No. It's up to the Mormon to convince me that his religion is right, to be honest, to be truthful, and not to sort of not to be obtuse.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean our building. I meant
yes.
Kind of in person somewhere, somewhere where we could meet face to face. That's all.
Well, I live quite to the south of Chepstow. I'm in Plymouth. I phoned Chepstow because I couldn't get through. I left messages at the local Kingdom Hall here in Plymouth, where I live. Yeah. I did get one series of text messages about where do I live, what is my address. And all sorts of personal information. And I said, look, I just want to have these Bible questions answered, and you're asking me all sorts of things that I don't have to give over the internet, like my home address, and where do I live, and whatever. And there was no attempt to answer my question. I've got the Watchtower in front of me, 15th of November, 1967, page 702. Those who submit to such operations... it talks about removing organs. Okay? They suggest removing the organ and replacing it directly with an organ from another human. This is simply a shortcut. Those who submit to such operations, that's medical operations, are thus living off the flesh of another human. That is cannibalistic. However, in allowing man to eat animal flesh, Jehovah God did not grant permission for humans to try to perpetuate their lives by cannibalistically taking into their bodies human flesh, whether chewed or in the form of whole organs or body parts taken from others. So in 1967, they banned organ transplants. This is following Christian Barnard in South Africa performing the first heart transplant in 1967. And that was intact until 1980 when they reversed their position. I'm kind of a bit shocked about this, and I've looked at your book, Enjoy Life Forever. May I read... may I read paragraph 1, which is only 3 lines on page 163?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's lesson 39, paragraph 1. It says, Jehovah told his worshippers in Bible times, the life of every sort of flesh is its blood, Leviticus 17:14. To Jehovah, blood represents life. Since life is sacred or holy, gift from God, blood is also sacred. Well, all you need to do is read the next verse, Leviticus 17:15. If you break God's commandment on blood, under the Levitical law, all you had to do was wash in water. Wash your clothes in water, ceremonially. They had large baths called mikvahs, and you had a ceremonial washing in this mikvah, or this large bath. You washed your body, you washed your clothes, and you were unclean until evening, and then you were forgiven, and you went back into the camp. So anyone who broke God's commandment on blood just had to have a ceremonial washing, and then they were cleansed again. Nobody was, I believe that you disfellowship people. People are not allowed to talk to their own family members if they break one of the rules. But the Bible is adamant, if you break God's commandment on blood, let me read it. Leviticus 17, I'll read from the end of verse 13. I'll read from verse 13 to 15. And whatsoever man of the children of Israel, or of the strangers who sojourn among you, who hunts and catches any animal or bird that may be eaten, he shall pour out its blood and cover it with dust. So you pour out the blood under the Levitical law. For it is the life of all flesh. Its blood sustains its life. Therefore I said to the children of Israel, you shall not eat the blood of any flesh. For the life of the flesh, all flesh is its blood. Whoever eats it shall be cut off. Now, this is verse 15. And every person who eats what died naturally, or what was torn by beasts, i.e. they break the law, okay, whether he is a native of your own country or a stranger, he shall both wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening, and then he shall be clean. So that was what happened to people who broke God's commandment on blood. You just had to have a ceremonial washing. They weren't disfellowshipped, as in Jehovah's Witnesses. You know, if a person's in a hospital and they decide to have a blood transfusion and they willingly take one, you can download quite easily off the internet your elder's book, Shepherd the Flock of God. It says that if a person willingly takes a blood transfusion and they're not repentant, they're to be disfellowshipped. Where's that in the Bible?
Well, so if you'd like to discuss it in person, we're happy to do that. I'd say I'm kind of haven't got any information in front of me now to mention to you, so it may be best to discuss it in person if that's okay.
Well, are you willing to travel?
Like to do that in Chepstow?
Are you willing to travel down to Plymouth? I don't have a car. I don't have any transport.
Oh, right, I just wondered. Oh, so what is there a reason why you rang Chepstow then? I maybe missed that. I've
already told you. I left messages at my local Kingdom Hall, and they texted me back with endless questions. Where do I live? We want your home address. And I said, well, I'm not giving that out over the internet. We want to know, which part of Plymouth do you live in? And they were going on demanding all this information from me. I mean, it was like speaking to the Gestapo. They wanted all this information off me. It was just peculiar. I was quite shocked.
Well, I think if you'd like to, obviously, it's probably not practical for us to come down there and vice versa. So, as I say, if you would like someone to speak to you, then in person, then
I don't.
I
don't want anyone to speak to me in person. I prefer to speak on the phone or on Zoom.
Well, I say I don't think it's probably best. I'm probably not the best position to do that because of where we are. So,
well, why? Jehovah's Witnesses have a letter writing campaign, and you've also been phoning people. Oh, and he's hung up again, or I've lost connection again. It's a shame I wasn't able to go on to Deuteronomy 14:21, which is the verse I wanted to go on to next, where in the theocratic state of Israel, if an animal had not been bled properly and it died of itself, it died beside the road or something, or it was killed by another animal, so it hadn't been ceremonially bled, the Jewish people were allowed to sell it to the alien, to the stranger who lived amongst them. Obviously, after that, the stranger would have to have a ceremonial washing in the mikveh. This is in Deuteronomy 14:21. You shall not eat anything that dies of itself, i.e., because it hasn't been properly bled. You may give it to the alien who is within your gates, that he may eat it, or you may sell it to a foreigner, for you are a holy people to the Lord your God. How did Jehovah's Witnesses answer that? I mean, you see, what's the point in my going to all the trouble of travelling to Chepstow and meeting all these Jehovah's Witnesses face to face, when it's quite clear over the phone that they don't have the slightest understanding of their own literature. They don't have the slightest understanding of Watchtower history. They don't have the slightest understanding of the Bible, and they don't know what other people believe. They don't know what the Christian church has believed and taught for 2,000 years. I mean, these people are absolutely clueless people who are just following I think it's 11 men now, perhaps it was 9, perhaps it's now 11. They're following this Borg organization, this Borg-like organization in New York State blindly. And they can't dialogue, they can't discuss what they believe. It's absolutely shocking. In Judaism, there is a principle, and I'm probably going to pronounce it incorrectly, halakha, and it's the principle of preservation of human life in Judaism, halakha. And that means that if you have a situation where two laws conflict, for instance, the Bible says you shall not kill, but the Jews also rested on the Sabbath day, which, by the way, was not Saturday. It was sundown on Friday to sundown on Saturday. So what happens when two laws conflict? What happens if, say, your son or your daughter falls down a well on the Sabbath day? Should you say, well, I'm going to sit here and let my son drown to death in the well? I'm not going to rescue my son from the well because I mustn't break the Sabbath. So in Judaism, there is a principle called halakha, the preservation of human life, trumps all of the laws. So if your son falls down the well and it's a Sabbath day, you are to break the Sabbath to save a life. And this can be applied to the policy on blood transfusions, that we shouldn't let people die when we can save a life. Also, Jehovah's Witnesses do not abstain from blood. This is the other shocking thing. Blood, if you go to page 165, there's a picture of a test tube at the top of the page. This test tube is blood that has been spun in a centrifuge. So it's been spun around very quickly, and the heavier red blood cells fall to the bottom. The blood plasma, the white stuff at the top, is the lighter stuff in white. And then in the middle you have white blood cells and platelets. Now, this is blood that's been separated into its 4 component parts. Of course, there's also water there, which would be the 5th component part of blood. So blood's in several component parts. Now, since the 1980s, there have been numerous changes in Jehovah's Witnesses policy that these parts of blood that are separated and then processed can be taken by Jehovah's Witnesses into their bodies. So it's completely inconsistent that a Jehovah's Witness is not allowed to have a blood transfusion, but if you separate the blood into its 4 component parts, red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets, blood plasma, and water, you separate blood into its component parts and you process those component parts into what's called fractions, then you're allowed to take those into your body as a Jehovah's Witness. You can take all the component parts of blood, provided you have them separately, not together. This is absolutely crazy. It would be like me saying to you, the Bible forbids you to eat a cheese sandwich. A cheese sandwich is made up of bread, butter, and cheese, and it's forbidden. But if you separate the cheese sandwich into bread, and then separate it into butter, and then separate it into cheese, you can have each of those component parts of the cheese sandwich, provided you have them separately. Can you see the lunacy of that? You can't eat a cheese sandwich, which is bread, butter, and cheese, but you can have bread, butter, and cheese separately. There is no consistency in Jehovah's Witness doctrine. It is ludicrous. And the only reason they can't change it now is that they've nailed their colours to the mast, and they're so committed to this that if they changed it now, there would be a huge outcry. Anyway, it's a shame the guy hung up, but I did try my best, didn't I?